Welcome to the You Thrive webinar for December. We are joined tonight by Seth Kelley, and you'll notice that the format is a little bit different, and that's because we are here at the Table Mountain Inn in Golden, Colorado. What you're about to witness is an actual session from the Thrive Purpose Workshop. So we have Seth here as a special guest, and off camera around the table are the workshop participants that have joined us. And so Seth, as some of you know, is a You Thrive member, and he is also the founder of Red Tail Coffee and a couple of other purpose-driven businesses. And I'm going to let him tell you all about that. This webinar is being recorded, so there isn't a chance to ask live Q&A questions. But if you want to put a question in the discussion board on You Thrive, Seth is around. We will have questions from the participants that are here at the workshop, and this is sort of a taste of what these workshops are like. So without further ado, Seth, if you would like to just go ahead and ignore the camera, just talk to the folks that are around. Tell us who you are and tell us about the company that you started.
All right, well, I'm Seth Kelley, and we started up I've worked in the nonprofit world for a long time. And we recently moved out to Fort Collins from Alaska, and I didn't have a job and decided I wanted to do something new, and kind of had ideas kicking around in my head and decided it's time to see if we can start a company, start a business. You hear about people who start businesses and love starting businesses, and I think also part of the incentive was the fact that this guy right here just dives into projects and goes for it, and I figured I can go for it as well. So not having a job at the time, the ideas that were rolling around our head, and this is my wife and my brother and my best friend, we decided we were going to start up a company called Opportunities, and we had a great name. We didn't know what we were going to do with that name. So Opportunities, the whole purpose behind Opportunities was we were going to start businesses that serve a social purpose. And it got refined more to we were going to start for-profit businesses that serve a social purpose. And as we talked about that, it kind of resonated that we need to show that if you want to make a profit, you can also make a social change. And that's where the ideas started coming and the opportunities started coming. So we started this company, Opportunities, and out of that we came up with two companies. One is Red Tail Coffee, and the other one is Waiver Market. And Red Tail Coffee is kind of the more interesting story, but
well, for now,
in
a few months,
now. But Red Tail Coffee, where I live in Fort Collins, they were building the MAX, which is this like light rail project, a public transportation project, and so you'd walk up the trail from my house, and they were building the transit center. And I could see this every day as I walked by, and they were building this transit center, and people were talking about the MAX and this big project going on. And at the same time, kind of across the parking lot, they were building this bigger housing project. And so the housing project, we went to a community meeting on that, and it went sour really fast. People in the community did not want this housing first solution project. So basically homeless people can get the housing taken care of, and then from there they can, it's shown that it works, it's a solution. And that was going in right next to this MAX station. And so I started pitching the idea, why don't we start a coffee shop in the MAX station and hire people from the Red Tail housing project? And that's where the Red Tail Coffee name came from. The idea being that if I go and order a cup of coffee, my interaction is very personal with my barista. Like I have to order, I have to talk to them, I have to do these things. And if I know that that person across the counter is homeless, it challenges all my stereotypes of homeless. And so if we can connect the two, we could transform the community. And it makes sense to have a coffee shop inside this transit center. So we had no experience running coffee shops. We had no money. We had an idea, and I started knocking on doors at the Fort Collins City. And one person after another said, well, we didn't put in a coffee shop, and the next person this and that. And so eventually, my last knock on the door was with the economic development director of Fort Collins, and he passed my name on to the Department of Transportation. And oddly enough, I get this call like 2 weeks later. This was last March. And they said, hey, I heard you want to start a coffee shop, or I heard you have a coffee shop and you want to open another one. And I said, well, I don't have one now. And they said, well, come over and check out the transit center and see if we can work something in there. When I got there, they had literally built out the whole coffee shop, all the appliances. I mean, it was fully ready to go. And they thought I already owned a coffee shop, and so we sat there and they said, "Well, can we see your coffee shop?" I said, "You're looking at it. This is it." And so what happened was they basically had nobody who bid on this. They had put it out to bid, nobody bid on it. They needed it open within a month, and they said, "Can you get this open in a month?" And I said, "Sure, yeah, why not?" So they gave it to us rent-free, utility-free. We got all the appliances. We even told them in order to get it open within a month, we need some help financially for the espresso machine. So they chipped in for that because they needed this place open. And so we've hired 2 people from a local nonprofit who are homeless or were, and now they are in supported housing. It's caught some national press, which was cool. And we're selling coffee online. We're doing these things. But my wife has pretty much taken over the day-to-day stuff. She's been incredible on this thing. But it's just that idea that, if you can connect these pieces together, you can really make something special happen.
So let's take a pause right there. And so what we've been talking about so far, and Seth has not. We haven't done this same rigorous conversation with Seth. He just sort of has figured this stuff out, which is awesome. But one of the things that we had talked about so far is kind of looking at what your purpose is, and the way we define that is kind of what is the thing that you would like to do, like for your person or for your company. Then there's the mission, which is sort of the strategy or the way that you're going to do that thing that's going to make the change or the impact that you want to make. And then there's the vision, and that's the way the world looks once that strategy has been implemented and things have been successful, right? So if you would just speculate briefly on that for that sort of framework for Red Tail Coffee first, and we'll shift to some of the other stuff in a minute here, but the purpose for you and sort of inside of Opportunities LLC, if it's about opportunities and creating opportunities, you can hear that some of the people that don't have opportunities are homeless people, and that there was this chance in Fort Collins where they were building this great housing solution for homeless people, and the proximity of this MAX station and being able to participate in that is something that's happening. So it's an opportunity that's right in line with what Seth's values are and what sort of the express values for the business are. So that's great. So then the strategy, right, is that you've got this housing thing that the city of Fort Collins is doing, but what's the next step strategically that would need to happen for homeless people to be able to either get back on their feet or to have the opportunities that are usually not afforded them? Well, job, gainful employment would be. And so Seth saw that opportunity as well within Red Tail Coffee. And so ideally, Seth, if Red Tail continues to be very successful, and I know you've got other ideas for the next steps with the bakery and with all that kind of stuff, so tell us the vision.
Well, I think the biggest vision, if it works, what happens is other businesses realize that they have these starting level jobs, these, the minimum wage jobs, that if they intentionally hire people who could really benefit from that, it changes your community. And so, and that's kind of the biggest thing is by us hiring people who are currently homeless, we flipped the script. So now instead of the community donating money and worrying about it and all these other things, that person is now considered a productive member of society, and they're contributing back into, so now they are part of the solution on a real level. And so I think other businesses can do the same thing. And that's our hope, is that if, as a for-profit business, if we can demonstrate, look, we're doing well, and it's because of our mission, other companies may pick up the same thing. And that intentional hiring can be in all different ways. Homeless can be one population, but people who are disabled, you see with vets, you see with all these kind of different groups. If you're intentional about it, you can change that whole idea.
And so tell me more about the sort of the media attention. What do you attribute that to, and what happened, and how is it because you are sort of a purpose-driven company, or what, do you think you would have gotten the same attention if you were just opening a coffee shop?
Yeah, no. No, it was kind of, we just started asking around, and we connected with the Coloradoan, the newspaper, and by telling them what our mission was, they correlated it with other stories they were doing on the Red Tail Ponds housing project. So it was a nice fit for them. I think the city adopted this because of how much pushback they were getting on the project, that now they could turn around and say, but look at this great example of what can happen. But it took off. I mean, when the Coloradoan picked it up, then I think it was Think Progress picked it up, and then the Huffington Post picked it up, and then it was on. We were getting calls from, it was on Yahoo News. It was all over the place. But and it happened real early for us, so we weren't really ready for it. So we just gotta. It's nice to be in the paper.
Well, and just to point out that the usual experience for businesses is that it's a hard slog to get media attention, right? It's tough, but there's something about purpose that resonates with people in such a way that it does the attracting thing. And so for Seth, it was like he hardly even had a business, but the purpose was compelling enough that people were beating a path to his door. Now, really, seriously, how is it going for business? Is it super easy? Has it solved all your problems?
No, it's a for-profit that is behaving like a nonprofit. Has an identity crisis sometimes, but it is it's doing okay. It's covering costs. We are definitely new business owners where we're not rich, we're not retiring, but we're making payroll, we're making our supplies, we're doing our advertising, we're making a little bit of a profit. So yeah, and we have loyal customers. The other thing that it's done, the coffee shop, like recently we just had a Girl Scout group from one of the local elementary schools, and what they did was they liked what we were doing, and so they did this big drive to gather hats, socks, gloves, all that kind of stuff. And so they got this big bin, this big tote filled with stuff, and they put on the front of it, "Take one if you need it," and they put it right there on our counter. And they were gone quickly. And they had a little notebook that was next to it. And the things that people wrote about, thank you. And because at a bus station, we all, that's people come through there that need other stuff. And so it was overwhelming. It took like 2 days, the thing was gone. And people were just so grateful. It was just give it away. It wasn't like, fill out a form or anything like that. So it spurred other things. So that feels good. Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's, before we dive into Seth's other businesses, do you have any questions or anything that you want to ask him?
Yeah, I have a question about is it all homeless people who are employees, or do you have a balance, and how difficult was it to find good people?
Yeah, it's not all homeless. The way we've done it, we didn't know how to run a coffee shop. We didn't know how to make coffee. So we got connected with some people who had that experience. So we hired them. And the one guy that's on, he's phenomenal. He's been fantastic for us. But he has trained my wife, she works there, and then some of the other guys that work there. So he's done all the training. But our hope is, yes, and people get so weird when we say that our whole staff can be people who are working their way out of being homeless. We believe that is the case. And instead of putting up cameras to monitor who's stealing or all these are the things we hear all the time, we believe that it can work. I mean, the applicants we get for those positions is extraordinary. We tend to take everybody who's homeless and put them in one pot, and that's it. And in our minds, we kind of have a picture of what a homeless person is. But we get applicants. Most of our applicants are college grads. They've been professors. They've run their own businesses, and they've stumbled. And once you dip into that problem, it is extremely hard to get back out of. And so we're just looking at that group that wants to get out of there, and that's who we're targeting. And we're using nonprofits to find good candidates. So
it's a great story in itself.
Yeah. So Opportunities has a couple of different businesses, right? So one of them is Red Tail Coffee, but another one is a thing called Waiver Market. And so what is Waiver Market?
Waiver Market. So I worked with people with disabilities for a long time, and in that system, people get services. You see like group homes, or you see like supported employment, you see one-on-one staff, and that's typically through Medicaid funding. And that Medicaid funding it was the system that I worked in Alaska. The trick with that is having choice. It's a very personal service that you're getting, whether it's you're living somewhere, whether it's you're getting bathing. I mean, all these things that are very personal. And individuals with disabilities don't typically have a choice as to who is providing that service. There's usually a point person who does that, where you don't know what the offerings are. And so the idea was to build a website very similar to what we all use for things like everything from buying a car to renting a house, everything. And so make it safe, make it HIPAA compliant, make it very safe, easy to use, make it speak the language of the families and the individuals with disabilities as opposed to the technical jargon you see on state directories. So we built this whole thing. Well, Thrive actually built the website, and it looks really sharp. It works, and what it basically does is allows providers of services to list their services. It allows families to get in there and pick which ones they like. A lot like like you can favorite the services you want more information about. It sends a notice to your caseworker or your care coordinator. It gives them a report of the things that you were looking for as someone with a disability or the family members, and it just opens up an industry that really hasn't had much competition. And we've seen some really good results from that, but we're just waiting to get over the hump on that one.
Right. And so, can you, just to give a little bit more background on this, right? So, people with disabilities, can you kind of tell, first of all, how did you and why did you get into this world?
Yeah, so my sister received services in Massachusetts, and we adopted her when she was 5, and she was a whole ball of just stuff to go through in our family. We have 3 boys, and then we adopted Samantha, and she kind of flipped our whole world upside down. So all 3 boys are somehow involved in some, like whether it's social work or teaching or education, all these different places. And what happened was when we moved to Fort Collins, at the same time, my sister was moved 6 times in 6 different group homes, and she didn't want to move at all. Like that was not her choice. The agency that she was getting services with, they decided to move her around. And so my mom was upset, I was upset, my sister was upset. So I called the state in Massachusetts to try to see what we could do, and there was nothing. They said, you don't have a choice. We're going to move her when we want to move her, and which is horrible. Like this is like we don't have to go through that. If you don't have a disability, why should someone who does have a disability not have that same opportunity to choose where they live? I mean, so she was kind of the inspiration to even come up with the whole thing.
Right. And so, just so that Seth has taught me a ton about how this works. And there is a really interesting opportunity from a new law that was passed in Washington that actually requires states to provide choice for people with disabilities and their families, and they actually have to prove that they have provided the choice. And so that presents a very interesting opportunity for an idea like waiver market, and that is going to happen in about March of 2015, we think. And so if it does, let's go to vision. What changes?
Yeah, so the Medicaid waiver system was totally redone, and this issue of choice has been a huge problem that parents have fought against and everything else. So in order to adopt the new regulations on St. Patrick's Day of next year, every state has to submit their plan of correction or the plan of action. And part of it, like you were saying, is they have to demonstrate choice. And when I talk to people about waiver market and about choice, I divide it up into 2 spots to kind of illustrate it. Choice happens in kind of 2 different ways. If I have 2 boxes, the box A and box B, and I ask you, choose one, and you choose box A, and I say, well, you can't have it. I've denied choice. And that's a big thing. You can't deny someone their choice. And so they have a ton of paperwork that says, I wasn't denied choice, and you sign off and you sign off. The other kind of choice is if I have the 2 boxes and they're covered and you can't see what's in them, and I say choose one, you can't make a choice unless you have information. And so I think that informed choice is very hard to do the paperwork on. You can't possibly, as a case manager, show somebody every choice that's available, but you can give them a gateway to look at those choices. And so that's what I think ours does. And currently, Colorado, Alaska are both looking at that as their model going forward. They may add it as part of their plan at St. Patrick's Day. If that happens, the game changes a tremendous amount. There's 8.5 million people who receive services in this country because of disabilities. That's not including seniors or mental health or anything like that. And so that group is huge, but people haven't really taken the time to see how big of a market share that really is. So now we're in 6 different states. We have 50 providers have signed up, and so it's starting to catch on,
right,
slowly.
Just to illustrate a couple other things, I met Seth when Thrive Consulting Group was hired to do work for the nonprofit that Seth used to run in Eagle River, Alaska. It was called Focus. And one of the things, well, there was a couple of things there that were really interesting that were sort of ideas that had come to fruition in various ways. And one of them was that there was an art program that Focus introduced, and it was for people with disabilities, and it was wildly successful. People absolutely loved it, and the opportunity for people with disabilities to have an art program that was for them was a really big deal. And one of the things that you can't really tell about in the market right now is if you're looking at this group home versus that one, do they have services like an art program? Do they have anything else that's there? And the thing is, you can't really tell, number one, and number two, since there's no competition in the marketplace, there's very little incentive for those folks to actually develop things like an art program and compete with each other that would create a rising tide and would actually have more opportunity for self-expression and development, all kinds of things for folks. And that's one of the things that is a problem with the system. Did I say all that right?
Yeah, a good example in Colorado Springs, they have a program that does just art. They're an art program, but they do a lot of drama and music as well. And they have to get referrals from the large agency in Colorado Springs to get anybody at their site. And because of that, the woman who runs it, she can't go out and advertise. She doesn't have a place to advertise. So a lot of these people who go to the large agency, they never get they may not even realize that they want to go to an art program. They don't get that opportunity like you would if you were going to like a college and you can look at the different classes and be like, wow, that one's interesting. Mm-hmm. There's no discovery, there's no exploration. So there's some people who would thrive with that kind of thing, with art, music. This may change my whole life. They never get that opportunity because they never see it.
Right.
So yeah.
So it is transformative. So in terms of the vision, right, of how the world would be different, that's what we're talking about. If people had that opportunity and that was par for the course and that's the way the country was, that's compelling. That's a heck of a vision. And so here again, we go from purpose, which is about providing opportunities for the folks that don't have them, to what is the difference between that value and looking at the way the world is now with the vision. And one of the things that could be the mission, one of the things that could actually make the change is this marketplace that's online that provides that. And so the business in it is that folks basically pay to advertise their services. So if you've got an empty room, you can show that, but in addition to showing that you have an empty room, you've got the ability to then market that and say, oh, and by the way, with the room, look at all the things that we have. And that competition actually creates this rising tide that could potentially shift the entire system to realize that vision. And so when we talk about purpose with this conversation, the more real world and tangible it is in terms of the specifics of the way the world could look and the specifics about the way that the world is broken now. And this is part of the conversation that everybody in Youth Thrive is familiar with the hero's journey, the broken world. The more specific and real that is about how that stuff is, the more purpose can actually have that kind of effect and organize things. So one other thing to just mention here, Seth, I know that with Focus, one of the programs you were struggling to get off the ground, if I can just put all the cards on the table, was something that's kind of similar to Red Tail Coffee, where there was a job placement program that you saw. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was the same kind of thing. We were trying to look at supported employment in kind of a different way, and there's a ton of money that gets flooded into training people on getting, like if someone's unemployed, this place they can go to get training and all these pieces. And especially we're dealing with people who have disabilities, there's a lot of money for training and getting people ready for that. And I challenged the staff and said, I don't think it's our people who have the problem. I think it's the community. And so it was a matter of challenging the community to give people the opportunity to even be hired. And we were going to try it for short little periods of time. And if we can get one hire to work, then we could get the next one and we could kind of, open up the whole marketplace. But the problem is, in that instance, we had people who would be phenomenal employees, phenomenal, and they would stay with you forever. And they would be so grateful every day for the job that you gave them. It was the employers that just needed to get over their own stuff in order to just give that opportunity.
And that program didn't go well.
It would take a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to convince people to change how they hire.
And
They'd rather hire the kid in high school or there was a gas station we were working with, and the night shift was the one I was talking about. I said, if you hire someone who's horrible, they're going to stay with you forever because they're not going to get a job somewhere else. If you hire someone who's phenomenal, they're going to get a job somewhere else. I can get you somebody who's going to be here for a while, and they're going to be grateful. And it just
didn't happen. And so the thing to point out there is that, again, you can hear Seth's purpose, right? His purpose and his commitment to kind of doing this, and there's multiple expressions for it. And in the case of Focus, the art program and all of that was an earlier incarnation of the things that he's been able to build now. And even a failure in terms of a job placement program at Focus matured and sort of, it evolved, and now there's Red Tail Coffee, which isn't the same thing, and it's not even, but it's related. And so you can kind of see this interesting through line, and Seth is in many ways, like many of us, just getting started in this. And so as some of these things start to mature and as they start to generate better and better revenues, Seth, are you going to pocket a ton of cash, or are you going to start new businesses?
Oh, I probably can't stop. So yeah. No, I like how you did that. I pulled from the past and dropped it right there. That was good. But yeah, no, I think there's a lot more that can happen, even with Red Tail Coffee. Like, we're looking at working with the housing project and pitching the idea of, they have a commercial kitchen. Can we do a bakery? I don't bake, but I know that I could have a baker there, and I could use the same system in place. And working with nonprofits in Fort Collins, we're looking at getting grant funding to open up more coffee houses. My brother jokes, but it's kind of our business model is, let's have a really good idea that people really like, and let's spend no money. And let's get businesses off the ground, which it's tough.
Well, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
So it's not that that's a tried and true method yet, but let's see where you are next year.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we're grateful that you're part of You Thrive, and thanks for your time. Let's open it up to questions again. Anything else that you'd like to know from Seth personally, business strategy wise? Anything else?
In the big picture of things, Seth, to have a business that is not even a year old and is doing a little bit better than breaking even is really quite successful.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I just have a hard time of, if it's not perfect, it's not there yet.
Right.
But yes.
So what's the biggest challenge with the Red Tail?
Foot traffic, to be honest. I think we got everything figured out. I think foot traffic is the issue. I think people return quite a bit. People love being down there. We have all these things going on right there, but foot traffic is probably the issue. And it's nothing like, it's not that we did anything wrong. It's but where the MAX is located, we're waiting for the MAX, the transit system, to pick up. And so we see the ebbs and flows as the college kids come in. We're always crossing our fingers that the weather gets really cold, because our sales go through the roof when it's really nice and people bike to work, which is, I guess, great for the community. It's bad for us. So, yeah.
And what's the most gratifying thing for you in that business?
The most gratifying thing is people I've gotten to meet, and how many people feel safe to come there and share their story, and they share incredible stories, and they're grateful that we're there. I think that's kind of the big thing. Some people save up their money to come and just get one coffee a day, and they, you hear stories of people who, I sleep down around the corner behind the Walmart, or and they do make it. They come in, and that's, to me, even though I don't get to go there very much because I have my other hat that I wear, but I do know the people that are there, and they know us. We had one guy over for Thanksgiving. We didn't have a place to stay, so he came by. So it's those kind of pieces. Yeah.
It's great. And so one other thing that I want to raise here is a lot of folks, Seth and I are in very different positions in terms of what life looks like for us. I am married and have no children. I have one hat that I wear, and I love all the time they get to spend on Thrive, but relatively speaking, I've got a lot of time to be able to invest in purpose and all that kind of stuff. And so sometimes when people are very busy and they don't necessarily have a lot of time to think and stuff, they feel like they can't do stuff like what Seth has done. But Seth, what's your situation like?
Yeah, I'm married. I got 3 kids, 10, 8, and 1. And I'm the executive director at Base Camp, before and after school program up in Fort Collins. That's a great job. I love that job. I do the coffee shop. I do as much as I can for Waiver Market. So that's kind of it.
That's it.
That's all. So it's kind of like if you're clear on purpose, you'll find a way, and you should.
Yeah. In fairness on all that stuff, though, I mean, as far as purpose goes, I was thinking about this driving in, and just real quick, it's a lot of people can find their purpose. A lot of people can come up with ideas of how they can express that purpose. There's a ton of material on, like, fill out these questions and you can know your purpose. It doesn't happen until you have a support network, until you have someone who's going to support you or agree with you. It's really hard to kick off, like, here's my purpose, here's what I want to do, and everybody kind of goes, really? And you don't do it. And my wife, like I said, Red Tail Coffee, she's been incredible. My brother and my best friend who help with opportunities. Like, there are so many people, and even at Base Camp, I surround myself with people who buy in, and that allows you to do the stuff. It gives you the strength to kind of jump past I have a great idea, and everybody kind of goes, yeah, maybe. It gets you through. So it's the people around you that are probably the biggest piece.
It's awesome.
Resources, which is the bigger vision of Youth Thrive.
That's right. That's right. And just to say, so if that didn't pick up on the mic, we've got Rachel Davis, our past expert presenter, sitting behind the computer screen. She's also the co-leader for the Thrive workshops. And the point she just made was that that is sort of part of the reason that we are working on Youth Thrive, is that, there's a lot of really inspiring people that are out there that are working on their thing. And how much more powerful if we got a few of them, eventually scores and maybe even hundreds of them together, collaborating, being a support network and an inspiration source for each other. And that really is our vision, and that's one of the things that we see. So I think that's a fitting note to close on. But before we close, I do want to mention, Seth, where can they get coffee?
Oh, nice. Yeah. So we sell the coffee online. It's redtailcompanies.com.
They'll ship it to you wherever you are.
Yeah.
They do pounds of ground and unground, decaf and regular, a couple of different varieties on there. So there'll be more things that come on that store. It's pretty basic for now, but if you'd like to support the work that Seth is doing, this is Red Tail Coffee.
And Nathan will send out a link to everybody.
Yes, I will.